over 10 years. And still to come on the NewsHour tonight, Mexico's drug wars, a movie at the U.S. Supreme Court, and TB and HIV/AIDS in South Africa. NewsHour correspondent Betty Ann Bowser has our Mexico story.
In response to an increasingly bloody drug war in Mexico, the Obama administration announced measures to prevent the spread of violence into the United States. In what it called a major security initiative, the administration said it would double the number of agents along the border and provide more equipment to fight the Mexican drug cartels. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano outlined the plan this morning.
Our goal is twofold. One is to provide assistance to the government of Mexico to break up these huge cartels, which are funneling tonnage quantities of illegal drugs into our country on a regular basis, and are conducting this war of violence within Mexico that has resulted in over 6,000 homicides, over 550 of which were assassinations of law enforcement and public official personnel.
Violence between the Mexican government and the drug lords and among the cartels themselves surged after President Felipe Calderon deployed 45,000 Army troops and federal police to fight the drug trade in December of 2006. Since then, some 10,000 people have died. The second part of the U.S. plan is designed to stem the spread of violence into the border states.
We've seen some increase in violence primarily between cartels themselves, kidnappings, for example, in the Phoenix area, in the Houston area. But what we want to do is to better secure the border area against further violence and make it a safe and secure area where, of course, the rule of law is upheld and enforced.
Secretary Napolitano also outlined some of the specifics.
We are moving mobile X-ray units to the border. These will be used to help identify anomalies in passenger vehicles. Well, what does that mean? That means we're trying to identify vehicles that are carrying arms into Mexico that are being used in the drug war in Mexico.
Some of the initiatives announced today continue or expand programs that were already in place under the Bush administration. But even in the 2 months since President Obama took office, the war has intensified.
The cartels are fighting over trafficking routes to get drugs across Mexico and into the United States.
Andrew Seeley studies the Mexican drug issue at the Woodrow Wilson Center think tank in Washington.
The Mexican government has been very aggressive in the past few years, going after a group of drug cartels that control most of the cocaine trade into the United States. They have managed to reshuffle the leadership. They've arrested and killed a lot of the key leaders. What we have right now are new leaders of the cartels who have gone to war with each other.
Mexico's ambassador to the United States, Arturo Suracan, said demand from the U.S. side is at the root of the problem.
You have to understand that drug trafficking does not operate in a vacuum. It isn't just an issue in Mexico. It's an issue in Mexico because Mexico sits next to the largest consumer market of illicit drugs in the world. And as drug trafficking organizations have their trafficking routes through Mexico, so do they have their distribution networks in the United States.
The violence is further fueled by billions of dollars in firearms purchased legally in the U.S. but smuggled across the border along with bulk cash from drug sales sent back to Mexico by the cartels.
You mean some of these guys are just driving around in trucks that are just full of cash?
It sounds incredible, but literally, I mean, these are proceeds, billions of dollars of proceeds from drug sales that are coming down U.S. highways in trucks and cars and vans, going down to border areas and then being broken into smaller shipments and taken across the border.
Ambassador Suracan says the billions of dollars of illegal guns coming across the border are a particular worry.
Mexico has very, very stringent gun control laws. You can't buy a weapon in Mexico. You can't go into a store and purchase a firearm. So all of these weapons are coming across the border from the United States. 90% of all the weapons that we seize in Mexico originated in the United States.
The Justice Department says the cartels have infiltrated 230 American cities in nearly all 50 states. But nowhere have there been more problems than in Arizona, where hundreds of people have been kidnapped, many of them with connections to Mexico. Democratic Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords represents the 8th Congressional District that includes Tucson.
Violence is increasing, drug traffic is increasing, and for my ranchers and farmers and my communities that live on the border, there's a real concern about violence spilling over. My home over the last couple of years, 3 times was burglarized. A lot of that has to deal with petty drug runners or people that are drug addicts that need, a quick hit. They need to get money in a quick way. So you see the number of burglaries that are increasing, and it hits home to you. And you sort of, once it happens to you personally, you realize, oh my goodness, you start to study the numbers.
Ambassador Sarah Khan says his country and the U.S. will have to work together to solve this problem because the two countries are bound up with each other.
What's going on the border is an example of how intertwined these two societies have become. And in many ways, the fact that a youngster in Atoka, Oklahoma, is consuming drugs from Mexico, or that came from Colombia in transit through Mexico, has a very profound impact on the level of violence, not only inside Mexico, but along the border. We are co-stakeholders to ensuring that we shut these guys down.
Is this thing winnable?
I think that we have the possibility to mitigate the damage being done by the drug syndicates. I think that we can certainly bring down the levels of violence to a minimum. I think that we can together work to encourage our youngsters to understand the dangers and the perils of illicit drugs. I think that it's all about harm reduction and harm mitigation. What I'm suggesting here is that the way we fight drugs is like a water-filled balloon. You squeeze here and it's going to bulge out here. And we have to have that holistic understanding of how this works to be able to shut it down using different tools and working regionally with other hemispheric partners.
Border security will be at the top of the agenda when Secretary of State Hillary Clinton meets with officials in Mexico City this week. Her visit will be followed by Napolitano and Attorney General Eric Holder next week. And in April, President Obama himself will go there.